Bless him when he moves, promises him notoriety, promises him a great name, stability, a great family. Many of you have heard this story plenty of times. You know it's one of these touchstone stories in the history of Jews and Christians and Muslims. Although you might wonder, like, why is this little story so important? Nothing drastic happened there. You wonder, so what? So God calls Abram, whatever that means. I've never heard a voice like that. And if I heard a voice like that in my ears, I might go to a shrink. Abram moves and God blesses him, whatever the heck that means. I've never been blessed with a divine lottery. Maybe you have in some way, you know. But this sounds like one of these kind of typical, boring, irrelevant Bible stories if you just read it and ignore it. Because in my life, I've made plenty of decisions and I've earned whatever I have. And sure, there are things. Some of you have kids, and those are a blessing, right? Almost like a divine thing. And maybe, you know, there's things that when the cancer went away, yes, you felt, thank you, God, for that. But that was the doctors, not God. And it nearly ruined you, and those kids nearly ruined you. And so, Abram, big deal with your calling and your blessing. See, Abram is promised that his name will matter, but I wonder, some of us wonder here, what does my life matter? What is it worth? What difference has it made? Have I really left any mark here? That's what God promises him. You're going to leave a mark. You wonder, well, have I done that? Abram is promised financial comfort, but you worry every day. I worry every day about these kind of things. Has anyone ever prayed to God for money and gotten it? You know, maybe so. You might say, is it coincidence? Is it God? I don't know. Abram is promised a great family, but for so many of us, that doesn't sound very familiar either. Because he's 75 and his wife is right about there and they don't have any kids yet, so it takes a certain kind of gullible sensibility to believe that they're going to all of a sudden have this big family. So it comes down to these two basic questions. And you can ask these for any Bible story. One, if this story is real history, what does it have to do with today? And two, if it's some kind of holy metaphor for today, what does it have to do with me? What does it mean? How does it matter? Those are my kind of questions with the Bible. What does it mean? How does it matter? So here's what I can do to answer them for you. You know the plot of the story. You know God calls, God promises, the guy goes. But let's dig into some of the hidden messages in here. You know the names. I mean, Dean did exactly what a liturgist, if you want to be a liturgist and you're scared of the Hebrew names, do what Dean did and just say them. And then, you know, none of you know the difference of whether he said Morah, who knows? I don't even know the difference. There's some of them you need a in them, yeah. But here's we're going to uncover some of the hints behind those Hebrew words. You might think it's an ancient story with just about one guy and one particular journey, but we're going to get into the background of this, and it might tell you some good news about the general journey that all of us are walking. It might tell us some good news about just being human and what you face right now. Abram might not be dealing with your particular issue, but if you follow along, God might have a message through Abram. So we're going to look at 4 Hebrew names, and we'll unlock something that might lead you to understand your life, your dreams, how it matters. It might make you feel more blessed, might even draw you closer to your family or your synthetic family of the community of God. It's a long shot, but it might even give you some insight into what you're to do next, what God is calling you to. So first, Abram. We sang Father Abraham, but at this point of the story, his name is just Abram. He doesn't have that next bit. What does that mean? The AB is shorthand in Hebrew and in Arabic right now for father. It just means father. And Ram, it sort of means prominent or leader or exalted, something lifted up. And so Abram's name means exalted father. But how many kids does he have? 0. Which is kind of a painful name. Wouldn't it be? He's not very fatherly. He's not very exalted at this point. It's not like he's living up to his name. It's like there's this important thing about Abram, but he's not doing it. And if he doesn't want children, if he decides he doesn't want children, I'm fine with that. If he doesn't feel called to children, okay. If he can't have children, that's fine. I am the last person to throw him under the bus for not having children. But his name in this story, he feels like something is missing. He's looking for something, listening for something, waiting for something to change, something to fulfill, something to enliven. He seems to know deep down that there's this identity he belongs to, but somehow he's broken off from it. Somehow he can't reach it. That is something I can relate to, being broken off from something that feels so right. He is, and we are, searching for that thing that makes our heart sing, that thing that makes you, you. Later we know that Abram gets an update to his name. After God explains, and Abram must have thought this is crazy when God said, your descendants will number like the stars of the sky or the grains of sand on the beach. God gives Abram the first letter of God's name, Yah. So God's name is Yahweh. The first letter of that Yah there sticks that right in the middle of Abram's name. And exalted father becomes Abraham. Now there's two meanings here. Haman is the Hebrew word for many or multitude. So there's a sense here where Abraham is just given this new name, is father of many, which might be even more painful. The other possible meaning here is Raham, just Ab-Raham. Raham is this soft word about compassion. It's a gentle love. It's this deep feeling. It's the same root as the Hebrews have for the word womb. It's a womb love. And so exalted father becomes gentle father, motherly father. It's a twisty translation, but something like motherly father. So to be clear, Abram, who did not feel fulfilled in his life, hears God's call, whatever that means, follows that voice, and not only does he not have kids at the time, but he's promised even more, to discover his purpose, fill out his identity, to become exactly what he was meant to be, more than he ever knew. Second, Sarai. Some people just have unfortunate names in this world. I don't know what all your names mean, but Sarai means contentious or quarrelsome. Can you imagine if you had a friend? You have friends who deserve this name. This town is full of Sarais. But poor woman, she has, in this part of the story, she has not had any evidence of her name meaning contentious. Nothing about her life. Next week we will see exactly why she's named Sarai, because she's mean and she fights. But right now, no one is living their best self here. No one whose defining characteristic is quarrelsome is really living out their best self. Something isn't right. Something is missing. People aren't quarrelsome for no reason. Something has happened to her. Something she can't let go of. Something painful that is making it hard for her to be part of this world in a graceful way. So Sarai, she too is listening and wondering and waiting and hoping that something fills this hole in her heart. Something heals her pain. She doesn't know what it is yet. And frankly, a physical move, never fixes personality issues. Just deciding to have a kid never fixes marriage issues. But there's something out there for her, and she's open to it, and she wants to be whole. And later we will find that Sarai receives also the first letter of God's name, that Yah, and so her name becomes Sarah. Does anyone know what Sarah means in Hebrew? Princess. She went from being contentious to princess, which is a great name for someone who eventually will be matriarch for billions of people. God has a way of making her whole in exactly the way she couldn't have expected, in exactly the way she was called to be. 3, a short one. After Abram and Sarah arrive in Israel, they make an altar and they pray. And where do they make it? They go through Shechem, which is this traditional town where lots of altars have been and would be. But they go to this weird place, the Oaks of Moreh, which is not really on a map. There's a row of hills sort of named Moreh, and maybe there were some oaks there, maybe there were some trees there. Some of the King James has a different translation, but whatever it is, the best guess I have is this is a reference. So many ancient people have trees that are sacred, right? In all religions, there's these, like even in Christianity, the beginning of the Bible has a tree, the end of the Bible has a tree. Right here we have a tree, and usually ancient faiths, the people who have control over these sacred trees are kind of oracles, kind of prophets. And so there's a sense here that maybe what they're doing while they're traveling, remember God didn't tell them all the details. God said, you go, I'll keep telling you more. So they've stopped and they built an altar and they're praying right by some oracle, some teacher who's going to help push them along, as though fulfilling your purpose does not happen in one realization, but it takes a community and it takes being ushered. 4, whether there's an oracle or whether it literally is just an oak tree and nothing more, they end up settling between these two towns. On the west is Bethel, and on the east is Ai. Now, those are real towns. You can find them on your map. You can flip through your Bible. You can find them right there. They're in ancient Israel. They're still, you can still go dig there. They're just a few miles north of what would become Jerusalem. Jerusalem's not there yet, but they're there. And some of you might know, on Christmas time, Bethlehem means house of bread. Beth is house, Lehem is bread. So, and El, some of you know, is just the generic term in the Middle East for God. So Bethel is the house of God. What a great place to go when you're looking for your purpose. The house of God. I would love to be in the house of God when I'm looking for a purpose. Maybe there was an ancient temple there before Jews ever existed. But whatever it is, they both go to Beth, the house of God. Great place to be. But they're also near Ai, A-I. And Ai is the Hebrew word for ruin. Just empty, broken, completely destroyed. So they pitch their tent. They start their life smack between the house of God and total ruin. When we look for meaning in our life, have you ever felt unsure if you were leaning toward God or leaning toward ruin? When you've been looking for a purpose in your life, have you ever been so afraid of being near ruin that you forget and you're too timid about how near you are to the presence of God? Abram and Sarai don't start at the altar. They don't start when everything is set up just perfect and holy. The beginning of their fresh start comes in the most normal, real times with disappointment and brokenness, through mental illness, through what their culture would have called some failure or weakness. And we do not wait until everything gets figured out in our lives. We don't wait until we're good enough for God to meet us and call us and walk with us. The Spirit is there when we fall asleep in despair. The Spirit is there when we wake up confused and hopeless. The Spirit is there when we rest in excitement about our opportunity to make a difference in the world. The Spirit is there when we're joyful at the mark that we have made. The Spirit is there calling us from all things to be the best selves we can be, to make the world the best world that we can create with this beckoning God. The Spirit is there calling us to abundance, calling us to integrity and wholeness, calling us to live fully and wholly. May we hear that, and may we follow. Amen.